everyone, Rascal here.
And Mama, welcome to Paws On Animation and our Paws On Manga segment.
It's a big one because today we're covering the Dragon Ball manga.
Yay! Finally!
Hooray!
Yes, this is something we never, ever thought we would cover. But after Akira Toriyama's recent passing, we decided to try the first few volumes for the first time. And we were amazed by how much people were inspired by this series. But
before we start, be sure to like, subscribe, and click notifications on future podcasts and want to pause videos.
Yes, and thanks for joining us today, subscribing, sharing our videos, and so much more. We really appreciate you a lot.
Yes.
The thing about this is I saw it on the shelf at the library.
Mm-hmm.
And as Rascal said, when he passed, it was like, we've never checked out any of the series or the mangas.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the one sad, bittersweet thing is that we unfortunately had to wait until then to decide to check it out.
Right.
I wish we had read it while he was still alive and been able to be a part of the fandom, because this is one awesome read.
Yes.
It is nothing like I expected. And I saw them on the shelf, the omnibuses.
Yes.
And I said, you know what, I'm just going to grab. And they didn't have the first one.
Of course they
went ahead
did.
and grabbed all the others they had. And then you put on hold the first one. And although I got the manga first, guess who read it first?
Me.
It was just like, wow. And after reading not even the entire first volume of the omnibus, I was just thinking, I can see why people love this so much.
Oh, yes. And I do remember at one point we did find some other Dragon Ball manga there, but it was a sequel series called Dragon Ball Z Super. So when we read it, we were lost because there was like a decade's worth of information that we didn't know. So everything looked crazy as heck and we couldn't read it. So I'm grateful that you found the omnibuses, and then we got the first one. We can actually read it from the beginning, because now it won't look so confusing.
Yes. So I know you're already familiar with it, but for those who may be joining us and aren't, like we weren't, it's a Japanese media franchise entirely. The manga itself ran from 1984 to 1995, and this franchise was created by, as we mentioned, Akira Toriyama. It had 519 individual chapters collected in 42 tankobon volumes by Shueisha.
Right. And they had only just recently started doing these 3-packs, because originally they have been doing just one volume at a time at the normal rate, and doing a full color separate thing where they really just take one arc from different parts of the manga and then make a big graphic novel style volume and make it fully colored. So I guess to match how it looks in the anime when you see it colored in. And when you start reading it, it's almost crazy how it starts off, and then when you reach the end, how different it is from beginning to the end. It's almost like you're watching some extended universe.
Yes.
Like he was the one to start having an expanding universe of one story.
And it's amazing when you're reading it, because you're just picking all these characters that are from all these other anime and mangas.
Right.
And I mean, every single anime and manga that we've read to date and seen has had some influence from Toriyama's work. Every single solitary one, from the minutest details to just characters being one-offs with a name or letter change.
Right.
Gojo Goku.
Right.
And I think another part of what made this such a lovable manga is that you've got these characters that, even though they're based on the Monkey King,
yes, Journey to the West,
they still are unique and fun, and they've created other characters that are unique and fun.
Right.
And I love that it starts off with Goku who looks like a little child, but he's actually, I think, 12.
12 or 13, yeah.
And you are along for the ride on his journey from being Pat to being an adult, having his own family, and then having his children and so forth. It's a fun ride. So let's talk some about the early volumes where we get to learn and know about Goku and Bloomers and Tenshinhan.
Right. So when you're first reading it, it first starts off, it does take a lot from Journey to the West and Monkey King. And then as it goes on, it starts to slowly step away from that as it reaches the conclusion and starts throwing in Superman and everything else.
Yeah.
But for the beginning, they try to have their own little take on it. And the biggest thing is that Goku has a tail and he thinks that's normal.
Yes! That was so funny. And it strengthens his tail.
Yes, all of it. It was so funny.
It was kind of like, what other character has the strength in the
It
body
was,
part?
it was, you remember, if anyone's seen, they had a pilot for Amazon called A the Realms Eternal.
That's it.
And they had a tail that was sentient.
And the entire world was robbed of not having that animated series.
Right.
But yes, and you love Goku from the beginning. You just fall in love with him immediately.
Right.
And you think he's a little kid because he looks really little.
Right.
And then you learn that he's not a really little kid, but he is naive and totally clueless and totally dumb because he's being reared by his grandfather alone on this island.
Right.
And here comes Bloomers. I know her name is Bulma, but Bulma means bloomer, so I just call her Bloomers. And she shows up, and he's never seen a girl before.
Right. And funny thing, he doesn't know what anything is as a girl. He thinks the girl, she's supposed to look like him in some way, shape, or form. And the whole thing ends up being hilarious. And he said, you can't tell the difference? Well, no, where's your tail? Where's your thing? Where's your this?
Yeah.
Where's your that? And it said, how are you going to tell? How are you going to tell the difference between a boy and a girl? And his whole thing for the first maybe 10 or so volumes is that he's go to a person. He can't tell by looking at him. He gets to their lower area and he goes, pat, pat. Oh, you're a girl. Pat, pat. Oh, you're a boy. And they're like, what are you doing? And she smacks him every time he does it. How am I supposed to tell?
So within this humor, we learn about the Dragon Balls and their importance and what you can do with them, and that she's looking for them and why she's looking for them. And then the adventure begins. And it's a fun adventure. It is so fun. I just want to point out that yes, in the beginning, the first volumes, quite a few of the volumes, there is fan service for the little boys. Akira was definitely a man who liked women. But what is wonderful is that once he grows up and gets a wife and children, fan service stops.
Yes, that's true. They make a little comment here and there, but as far as it being severe and just wild and crazy,
panties and butts and pat
and Turtle Master wanting to look at chest or
that
something.
never stops.
Yeah, but they don't make a huge focus on it where they say a comment and then they're done now.
True.
So it's a huge difference now.
True. And again, the characters look unique and different, and you can see Megami's hairstyle and everyone's hairstyles, and you can see all these characters that are being derived from Goku. And what was interesting in here is there are really large time jumps, like in Young Justice. Now we know where he got it from.
Right.
He starts off, he's like, we said 12 or 13, then he goes to 18, then he goes to 23,
right,
and then it keeps going.
Right.
And because we learn that Goku and the other people who show up that are villains later are aliens.
Right.
Super Saiyans. That they don't look like they age.
Right.
And poor Bloomers and everyone else on Earth gets older and older and older.
And what I think is so funny, they don't make it really a sad thing. Like when you see other animes or even Western shows do this, when someone ages slower or is slightly immortal, everyone else looks physically older and you know they're older, and they make it sort of a really sad thing, or it's like depressing thing that they're gonna see them be gone, and it's like brings you down. Well, in Dragon Ball, like 20-30 years pass and these characters are still around. The old Total Master's like 200, he's still going around like nothing happened. But Bulma looks no different. The kids get older and then they get kids. But and it's so funny that everyone either looks the same or they just look a little older, and they don't act like they're really old or anything. It's so funny. It's just like, oh, it's no big deal. They were this old. They're hundreds of years old. Yeah, they're fine.
And then you have these characters that were unique at the time, villains that come along, and you have the competition that comes up.
Right. The little tournament, the martial arts tournament.
Bodu's.
Some I like to call it martial arts tournament.
Yes. And It's every 3 years or 5 years, and you get to see them compete. You learn of Hercule. I think the most fun part for me before I start going all down the line is getting to learn who these characters are, because online I've seen them for years, whether it's on Twitter X or Instagram or Pinterest or Tumblr, and not knowing whom they are, just knowing their names and that people love them. And it was such a wonderful journey to learn who they are and what they mean to manga and anime on the whole.
Right.
And to love these characters like others have loved them for years.
Right.
To know and understand why this is such a favorite read and why it was imitated by so many. You can't help but be inspired by everything that was going on in here.
Right.
He did for anime and manga what, what's the word I'm looking for? What inventors did for the telephone,
right,
and for the light bulb,
right,
and
for you,
all these. Seriously, he was that fantastic in the creativity he was given, and the writing that he did, creating this world, this massive world that had spin-offs that were his officially, including Sandland,
right, that
we watched and we'll tell you about in another podcast, and how you have all these other worlds that are being created by other mangaka that have been inspired by him and his characters. It's just Toriyama's universe, and we're all just living it.
Right. And one thing you definitely will notice as you're reading, and it starts off when they do one of the last stories related to Journey to the West, is when Go gets to fight the Demon King. And Demon King's an alien. It's like, we're going to call him this, but he's an alien, but you get the point.
Right.
And you start noticing his henchmen. They have cymbal and bass and this, that, and it's like, and tambourine. Like, wait a minute. And you get to other groups with Frieza, and you have butter and cheese and stuff. And then you start noticing this pattern here.
And it was so funny. You said, I don't get the pun. And I'm like, cheese, Frieza, cheese. And I started going, like, oh my gosh.
Even Goku's name, you found those Kakarot. And then at one point,
carrot.
Then he's little. He eats every food. And then one day he said, "Oh, well, turn you into a rabbit. All you can do is eat carrots." He said, "I know. I don't really like carrots." It was like, gosh, the one food he doesn't like.
Then he names Gohan rice.
Right.
We don't know what Goten means.
Unfortunately, no.
Let us know in the comments. We know you know.
Right.
And it was funny how the women were named after underwear. I thought it was hilarious. You had Chi-Chi.
Right.
You had Bloomers. You had Bloomers, Chi-Chi, and there was one more. The one who was turned from
they had lunch.
To dark. Yes.
I'm like, what?
They had the strangest names, and it made it so hilarious.
Right.
Another thing I enjoyed is in the omnibus they actually put original letters that were written to Toriyama for a while, where he answered them, and then later on the little inserts he would put talking to his fans. And I really love that they added that in the omnibus for those of us that didn't get to experience it in real time. And it just made you feel like you were a part of what went on, even though it's decades later. The writing, again, is brilliant, it's fun, it's engaging, it's everything that you would want in anime and manga.
Right.
And I keep saying anime because we've now begun watching the series as well. And we have been told at some points, maybe you should try it or you might not like it, probably because of the fan service. But in the context of how the story was, the fan service was hilarious. And again,
it wasn't
it
too
stops
much.
Later on when he becomes an adult and has a wife and children.
Right.
And I also love seeing his children go up. Gohan, when he first goes to high school, is so adorable.
Oh my gosh.
And then you see Goten. And then you have Bloomers with Vegeta, which you never saw coming.
Why?
And then they have Trunks, which you never saw coming.
Right.
And then it's just so much, too much to tell you in this podcast.
Right.
But
it'll also be 2 hours long.
For those of you who love this franchise, we absolutely can see why. It is absolutely one of the most perfect manga we've ever read.
Right.
It is just fantastic and wonderful. And all the superfluous descriptions you can have, attribute them all
Right.
to Dragon Ball.
Right.
Because they deserve Dragon Ball deserves every single accolade it's ever received, it's getting now, and will ever receive in the future. It deserves them all.
Yes, absolutely. And I think one of my favorite things about the manga is that as you're reading this entire series and you're seeing the characters grow up and Goku and his family and everything, you kind of like how his family and his circle of friends starts to just get bigger and bigger as it goes. It starts with just him and Bulma and Yamcha and what's the pig's name? Unfortunately, forgot. It's been a while. The one that can shape shift, and Pigsy was pretty much based off of in the voice when you hear it. And it starts with them, and even though they separate, come back together later, and they keep adding more characters, and they don't just come and then they go. I think only lunch, they have them with lunch one time, and then the rest end up staying in the group. And I love how it just keeps going, and some are even enemies that end up turning to be friends and or rivals. And you got the Piccolo reincarnation son, whatever the heck it is. He ends up becoming an ally later. And you got the stuff with the androids, and they become allies later. And you got these other Saiyans, someone becomes an ally in that. And it just keeps, and it just keeps going, and you get to the end of the manga and you just realize, wow, just about everybody Goku has met that wasn't a crazy person that couldn't be redeemed, and you knew okay, this person can't be redeemed. He's tried to help them, so you don't have to do this. There are a
Wonder
few
over yonder, and Dominator.
There are a couple characters in here that don't become friends or allies. They stay enemies, or they just are gotten rid of because they're just too far gone. But for the most part, just about everybody that Goku meets and trains with or fights or battles or ends up being enemy turns an ally, and by the end of the story you have this one big family of characters and they all stay in contact and stuff, and it's one of the most hilarious things ever. No matter what happens in this universe, it is completely normal. You don't question it. They don't really ask anything. Just oh my gosh, and then they keep going.
True. And the last thing I want to point out on a personal level, and then a few facts, is that the Dragon Balls, you learn the purpose of the Dragon Balls, the secret of the Dragon Balls. You can only speak to the dragon and the Mikian. And you have to have all 7, and they each has stars equating 1 through 7.
Oh my god.
What I found hilarious in this manga is you can wish for anything you want, and all they kept using it for was to bring people back.
Majority of the time,
anybody got killed off, or
bring this person back.
Got killed off, the friends got killed off. Their main uses of the Dragon Balls is to bring people back, to resurrect them. And I thought that was absolutely hilarious that was the main use of the Dragon Balls for this group. Other people would have wished for other things, but that's all they kept wishing for.
And my last thing, I couldn't believe it when I read it. When they explained how the Dragon Balls work and how they contain the wishes, all I could think was okay, someone at Disney read Dragon Ball. I ended up laughing so hard, there's no way this inspired them, and it did too. And it's
and I can see how everyone. So quickly, the Dragon Ball manga is being sold in over 40 countries. The anime has been broadcast in more than 80 countries. The 42 collective tankobon volumes have over 160 million copies sold in Japan and 260 million copies sold worldwide, making one of the best-selling manga series of all times, and rightly so. Reviewers have praised the art, the characters, the humor of the story, and is regarded as one of the greatest and most influential manga series ever made, with many artists citing Dragon Ball as a source of inspiration for their own now popular works. And you see it all the time. And the anime is also being popular. It's had an impact on pop culture for decades. It's going to continue to have an influence. It's inspired writers, it's inspired celebrities, filmmakers, Western animators, Western writers. It just inspired everyone around the world. So yes, it was a huge loss for mankind when Toriyama passed. But I'm so grateful
Yeah,
that
we saw
this
that.
is being left, and that even those of us who weren't familiar with him before are familiar now and can enjoy everything that he's put out. And you feel like you're a part of a family. You're reading it. When I was reading it and I finished, I was like, oh, now I'm part of the Dragon Ball fandom.
Yes.
I'm part of the Dragon Ball
Right.
family. We're family now.
Right.
You just have this happiness when you finish it. And that is a feat to write something that spans so many years and a long story. And you feel like you're just engaged and invested in it and a part of it. And when you finish reading it, you feel like, I belong.
Right.
I belong now. Let's go to the next one, which we will be reading Dragon Ball Z next. Actually, that's when it started. I've got to catch up. But this is definitely one of the best manga of all time. Absolutely not an over-exaggeration. It needs more and more praise and more accolades, and I'm sure it will get it for decades to come.
Right.
So if you've read the Dragon Ball manga, let us know in the comments below. Did you read it originally as it ran serially, or did you read it like we did later? Let us know. If you haven't read it, get to your library and get it, or buy it. And I'm going to buy this now.
Right.
I definitely want to read the whole thing again. If you've never read Dragon Ball and you've had reasons you think you shouldn't read it, take them and bury them. Bury them and throw them away. Because once you start, you're going to absolutely love this manga. You cannot hate Dragon Ball. I just don't see it. And if you do hate it, let us know why in the comments, because I can't see how anyone
because we
can
are
hate this
curious.
story in this series.
We've always did wonder, even when we didn't watch it, why was there a lot of people that couldn't stand it? I do really want to know why.
And
if you haven't already, subscribe for updates, weekly videos, your favorite anime series, anime shows, and all things animation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us for this, we consider a special podcast on something we've now become part of the fandom. We're loving it, enjoying it. And for those of you that are longtime Dragon Ball fans, thank you for allowing us to join your fandom and be a part of your family. We're so happy to be here.
Yes.
And as always, you are our
special. Thank you so much for watching Mask Entertainment.
And Mom Entertainment.
Have a fantastic day.
Peace.